reasonably early for somebody. I'm in my mid-60s now, but
Okay, thank you for having me.
That's no problem.
The time you're sparing. I like your boat, I should say that. And I would like to know, were you a businessman? Were you an employee before you retired?
So I was an employee. However, I was managing director of an English subsidiary of a big French multinational towards the end. I retired reasonably early for somebody. I'm in my mid-60s now, but I'd retired.
Really, mid-60s? You look younger.
That's having retired a few years ago.
Oh, yeah, okay. Now, looking back,
Yeah.
when you first started your employment,
Yes.
what were some of the things that you could have done better as an employee?
As an employee, I think I don't look back and think, well, I could have done that much. I think I was a fairly introverted character when I was young, and I think that was probably my challenge early on, as I didn't want to accept too many challenges that were public facing, if that makes sense. I like to be in the background doing stuff.
So you're more of an introvert or extrovert?
I was very much an introvert at school. I was the shy one in the class. Obviously, towards the end, you're managing director of a company, you have to be front facing, you have to be engaging with people, entertaining clients, etc., etc. So I completely flipped during my course of employment from being an introvert to being, I guess, an outward facing introvert, if that makes sense.
What are some of the pros and cons of being a manager?
I think anybody that aspires to be a manager thinking, everybody does what you want is looking at the wrong thing. From being a manager, you have the ultimate responsibility. You have to accept that you take responsibility for everybody in your organisation. That's health and safety, but their welfare, employment. But at the same time, the great thing about being the manager is you're setting direction. You're looking at longer term strategy. You're looking to see where the markets are, to see where you can make money. So that's the upside of it. The downside is that you're looking after 2, 3, 4, 500 people and being responsible for them.
Can you give me a scenario where you had a troublesome employee and you had to deal with him under you had to deal with him in the most appropriate way, and what he did or she did?
Yeah, it's always difficult to be very precise here. But I can talk about somebody who was whilst being employed by me, was working for somebody else. In the role that they were in, it wasn't a competitive role, but they were working as a bouncer at a nightclub whilst trying to work for me in a tech company during the day.
So you had two shifts?
Yes, only come to my attention when they struck somebody and ended up in a police cell overnight.
Really?
And therefore, ultimately, they were dismissed with the company for gross misconduct. If they'd come to talk to me about it, we probably could have made a situation where they could have fulfilled both roles at the same time. But it's the underhandedness of going away and doing something else and not being available to help other people when they were needed.
Back in the days, did you have like a timetable of structured activities that you had to go through, time like hourly, or it was just spontaneous?
I think in general, when you get to that management level, your diary is pretty full, so you have to be very structured. During the course of a week, you're probably talking with customers, you're having meetings with staff, you're understanding where projects are. So your diary becomes pretty much not your own. It's somebody, it's whatever you've been put in. So you have to manage meetings well so that you can walk from meeting to meeting to meeting and still have time to sit down on your own to think about what needs to happen inside the organisation. I travelled into London every day, to Paris depending on where I was, and I used the railway journey basically to do a lot of that. It was the thinking time, it was the time to develop strategy.
So did you set daily goals or monthly goals? What's your idea of goals?
Idea of goals, I think from an organisational point of view, they need to be 1 year, 3 year. But you
Isn't that
need,
far? Too
but
far?
it's a long time to think about, but you need to be thinking about where you are in 3 years' time. However, you need monthly objectives to get you to those 3-year targets. So you have to be thinking on 3 different levels effectively. Yeah. Where I want to be, what's my strategic goal for 3 years? What's the action plan for the next year? And then what do we need to do this month? What do we need to do next month? And monitor. I think if you get down to daily level, you just don't see enough progress.
Okay, good.
If you've got milestones that are next week, that are really critical, then you do probably need to be monitoring on a daily basis. But in general, you need to be looking at a longer term. The world's changed. It's a faster paced, probably even faster than I was 5 years ago. But still, you've still got to have that big picture thinking about where I want to be, where are the markets going, who do I need to follow? Do I need to follow Google? Do I need to be with Microsoft? Do I need to be with Apple? Those sort of challenges.
Now, if you made a goal and you did not accomplish it, how did you keep yourself accountable for that scenario of incompletion or?
I think you have to think. You always have to understand why things have not worked or you've not got to a specific goal. Very infrequently are they one thing, so one thing. They're usually a mixture of things that have stopped something happening in a time frame.
Okay.
I think it depends on whether it was a mission critical or not. And I think during my time, if something was mission critical, to use a bit of a phrase, so much attention was on it that I can't remember really missing a mission critical one.
Okay.
Yeah. If you come down a level, then sometimes it's acceptable to trade off not hitting some of those milestones, depending on whether it impacts you. I mean, I had customers where we had big bonuses for meeting milestones. So you do everything to hit those milestones so that you get your bonuses, if that makes sense, because that's where the money comes.
Do you remember the first customer you had? How did you get him or her?
So the first customer that was, an acquisition rather than something I inherited or come back from, was in the banking industry.
Okay.
One of my sales guys had been working on them for 2 or 3 years, but I spent 2 days with them, effectively guaranteeing that we would succeed, if that makes sense, as a customer. Because we're generally selling projects, so it's about guaranteeing that they can deliver their projects.
Okay, while employed, what was the most you made in a year?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you that.
Oh, okay,
It's large
approximately,
six,
like
large amount of six digits.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's good.
That's very good. Okay, excellent. Okay, where do you see that you're retired now? Where do you see yourself in the next, say, 5 to 10 years? Do you hope to have another business? Hope to be a coach of businesses? What's your thoughts of the future?
So my intention is to stay retired. That's for certain in terms of corporate business. I'm now chairman of a golf club. So
you're chairman of a golf club.
Yeah.
That's good. That's even better. That's good.
But that's
Where's
free.
your golf club? Where's it? Is it close by?
That's Newbury.
How far is that from here?
40 miles, something like that.
14 miles.
Yeah, so not too far.
When are you going there?
When am I back there?
Yeah.
Oh, not for another month or so. We're out for a month.
Okay, because I'm traveling next week, so maybe. Okay.
Give me your card.
Yeah.
If you've got a card, give me your card. We can maybe.
Yeah, I'm traveling. I'm leaving. I'm going to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. When you come back?
Maybe I'll come back maybe in a few months.
When you come back?
Okay. No worries. Okay. Yeah, that was off the topic a bit because I love to go to one of the golf courses and stuff and see what's happening. Okay. Are there any scenarios you regret? Any issues you saw that could have been done better? Anything in the past?
I think giving too much away.
It's in general stuff. Yeah.
In general terms, I think my team and me probably invented a couple of things for customers that actually you now see as very profitable businesses in their own right.
Okay.
And I think if we'd had the foresight to see them as a business opportunity for us, we could have been multi-millionaires, if not more successful than that. You know, and some of those are, you know, I worked in the mobile industry, so some of those things are some of the apps that you now see that are commonplace that we built before they were apps that were available to, you know, things like Facebook. We developed those for customers years before they were available in the general marketplace as a product. And it's about understanding that there was a business opportunity and going down that avenue rather than being a generalist.
How important is social media in a business like the one that you've just retired from in this day?
I think it's vital for every business. I think you cannot escape the social media presence, you know, and you know, the problem is you can have 99 great customer relationships, one bad relationship, one set of bad social media presence can ruin, you know,
the whole thing.
I don't say it ruins it, but it puts added pressure onto the business to try and, you know, explain to customers that, you know, this is just
misunderstanding,
sort of misunderstanding, or, you know. So I think from a business to business level, absolutely. I think with employees and with retail customers, even more important that you have a great relationship with them. And when you're in a large organisation, when it's a small business, it's easy to be in touch with a dozen people. You know? When you've got 500, 600, 700 people using social media to talk with your staff, it's quite an important way of making them feel part of the family, even though you're a reasonably sized business. When you get to 5,000, 10,000, you know, I've worked for a French company, 10,000 employees. You know, it's the only way really you can communicate with that many people.
What were your strategies of retaining a customer?
Good performance, meeting their expectations. Price is always a sensitivity. Quite often, price gets you in the door, but it doesn't keep you in the business. Yeah, because once they understand you can deliver a successful product and solution, they'll probably pay more next time round if you're successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. You know, I think you also have to have a good relationship with them. You know, you have to explain to them when things are not going well and how you're going to recover them, and not try and hide things. You need to tell them what's going on. To be open with them.
Now, as a retired manager, what advice could you give other managers who are currently in that role? Advice in terms of how they should act with the people that are under them and with customers in general.
I think it's a difficult one always to tell people what to do. I think you have to be yourself.
But this is the time, you know, anything that you have seen over the years that you'd like to express, this is your time to just shoot.
I think you have to be open. You have to be yourself. I think one of the things for me through the career is if you're not enjoying what you do, then you're in the wrong place, if that makes sense. And I think, you know, as a manager, you know, you need to be helping people enjoy their time at work. Yeah, because I think people who are happy tend to perform better, tend to enjoy work more, tend to commit more to work than people who are unhappy in the workplace.
But how do you keep the balance with enjoyment and professionality?
It's a great question.
Because there has to be a limit, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the limit?
I think I used to measure, not measure people in how they perform on a daily basis, but how they perform over the course of a program or a project, or over the course of a year. And I was always looking for people who were flexible, So if they commit, that means that they can, if they're delivering, they can have some time to themselves to work on projects that they enjoy, as well as delivering the ones that the company needs. So I think it's just about balance. You look at companies like Google, they try and create an atmosphere for their employees to be successful, and that's all about. It's difficult in the current environment, home working or whatever. I think that makes it much more difficult to build teams that are really coordinated. Don't get me wrong, I was selling the products. I was selling those sort of products, sort of for home workers, for being integrated, even though you don't see each other on a daily basis. But I think FaceTime with staff is important, and trying to create a team bond always is good. You only have to look at the success of sports teams. Team, there's no I in team. The team is about working for the group rather than for yourself.
They say teamwork is dream work, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Teamwork is dream work, yes, but everybody's different, so you have to work with everybody on a slightly different pace. I think that's one of the things is I see so much about everybody being almost clones, that everybody's the same, but everybody's different. So you have to use different mechanisms to train people, whether that's people can self-teach, whether they need to go on formal training courses, whether they can do it online. What suits them best, and it's almost the same with incentivizing people. Some people are incentivized by money, some people are incentivized by
extra vacation days.
Yes, absolutely. Or tackling new topics, learning about new subjects. Everybody has a different sort of sense of worth as well. So you have to balance all of those things.
Any advice for employees? Things that you had in your mind that you were like more reserved in saying it. This is the time to just express so they can hear.
I think there's an element of being honest with yourself, but I think there's an element of I don't think there's a manager on the planet who isn't willing for people to come and talk to them about the challenges they individually face or things that the company could do better. So I think there is an element of being prepared to speak up in that sort of
and not be shy, huh?
And not be shy.
Shy employees, huh?
But I think there is the reverse is probably too, of not becoming a nuisance by just complaining about everything.
Clearly, yeah.
Do
There has to be a balance, or one should be greater. Which one?
I think you have to be balanced, but I think it's probably the classic. The introverts don't say enough, and the extroverts probably say too much. It's sort of trying to find a happy medium. So I think that's one thing. I think the second for me is you almost get out of stuff what you put in. Yeah. So if you want a career that's 9 to 5 without too many pressures, etc., I would say don't become a manager, because you're in my situation and lots of my friends' situations, the phone was never off. It was never off. 7/24, 365 days a year. If you're the boss, you've got to be able to take a call from anybody in the planet at any point in time. And sometimes aspiring to be at the top isn't where a lot of people can cope with that sort of pressure on your personal life and on your whole being in some respects. So I think be realistic about what you can become. But anybody can become anything they want with the right drivers and the right determination.
Any advice for customers before they approach businesses like yours? What's a mindset that they should have before?
I think it's easy to say that don't always become focused on price, but become really, really engaged on
The quality.
the quality, and but also what it's going to deliver for your organisation. Because customers pay lots of monies for things that actually don't really deliver very much benefit, whether that be financially, because benefit's not always financial, but buying the right technology. Sometimes it isn't about price, it's about what's the best fit for your organisation, what's going to work in the time frames that you want. Sometimes the best products take a long time to embed in your organisation, and it's sometimes at the detriment of the organisation. Sometimes you can get a better solution by being a little bit more open to solutions, if that makes sense.
How much do you believe borrowing money from banks in order to develop your business? Do you believe in that to a great deal? Or
I think you have to have a decent strategy as to how you're going to pay that money back. And over what time frame. And I think if the people that listen to this, business school, most businesses have a hockey stick growth. So you're taking lots of money from investors, you're developing something, whether that's developing customers or product or solution, and then eventually you're hoping that you'll get past break even and into the profit line. I think success here is making that window of owing lots of money as short as possible, and if you can, is to try and build something with not too much money to start with, and then when you understand that it's going to work, then take the financial investment. Okay. But that's somebody that never had to close on the business, so I was probably the cautious one in terms of running these businesses. You're always looking to be positive. Always looking at, even if you're making a penny, you're making money, and therefore you can pay your employees, you can pay the people that you're taking product from, so that you haven't got that as something to worry about on a daily basis. That where's the money to pay your employees? Where's the money to pay your bills? To pay for your building? So,
any closing thoughts for the general young entrepreneurs? Last statement you'd like to give?
I think for entrepreneurs, I would love to be in today's market, in the sense of being a youngster in today's market, because I think there's so many opportunities in technology, in all sorts of businesses to grow, and I think if you find something that you're good at, try and find a way of turning it into money, and then go for it. I think there's don't try. I think sometimes people can think, there's lots of money to be had there.
Okay.
I'll go and follow that market. But I think if it's something you're good at, it's more likely to make it successful.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your time.